In this demonstration, we're going to go over the basics of the iris master analysis, and we're going to go through the steps of creating and deleting new process units. So in the exercise, the objectives for the users will be to open the master analysis in the side pane, of the starting page of iris, navigate to their selected process unit, or in this case, their selected power station, open up that whole power station, and create some new process units. Um, the general term of process units is going to be used for all subunits. So when I say process unit, this can mean, for example, R0 unit 5 or Letabo unit 2, which we're going to create. So that's going to be a process unit which belongs to Letabo power station, the unit 2, for example. After that, we're going to create some subunits again, boiler, turbine, and Genelec plant. And also what we're going to demonstrate here is the protection system, which is built into the tool, whereby a user cannot delete a unit if it contains some subunits. So you should not be able to delete, for example, Letabo Unit 2 once you have a boiler plant or a turbine plant or Genelec inside that Unit 2. In this much the same way, once you have components within a certain unit, you should not be able to delete that unit until you have deleted all of the components from the unit. And in addition to this, components themselves would not be able to be deleted if they've been added to at least one analysis. So these are some of the built-in security features to prevent you from accidentally deleting data which you didn't intend to do. So to go back to the start and to just quickly show what is the master analysis, if we look at our kind of overview of iris, basically the master analysis is this master repository of all the data, the component data, components being our primary elements within iris, upon which we perform different assessments, and sets of components upon which we carry out analyses. This master analysis is organized in a hierarchical structure. We have this tree to represent the structure, and this is what was mentioned when I talked about these process units. So here on the side, we would have, for example, the organization ESCOM, and the organization ESCOM would have its generically termed process units, which are actually the power stations, so R0, Camden, and so on. And a power station can have its process units or its units which belong to it, which are children, which would be, for example, Unit 6, and Unit 6 would contain the boiler, Genelec, and turbine plant. So the master analysis is this main data repository, and the data which can be edited and input in the master analysis is the data which is, as we like to say, a characteristic of the component. Your identifying information to which unit it belongs. So this component, for example, belongs to Letabo Unit 4 boiler. What kind of system it belongs to, and here we've introduced this KKS designation for systems, what kind of equipment type it is. This is the second level of KKS, the equipment level. Its design information, what is the design pressure, temperature, dimensional information, what is the material of construction, what is the construction code. Something that will be covered also in further exercises is the component IMT, inspection, maintenance, and testing history. So all of the component inspection history will also be uploaded on the master analysis. This is also something that doesn't change from one analysis to another. If inspections have been performed, then they are existing and cannot be added or removed from an analysis to an analysis. Also, the user will be able to input all of the data source references as was done on the old Excel sheets. So this is something that we will see when we get to the component side of the master analysis. Any fields marked with this kind of icon the little kind of Windows-like icon. Basically, um, the user will only be able to edit this information on the master analysis, and typically this will be admin level users with the appropriate level of rights to go into the master and edit and change this information. All levels of users within IRIS can access the master analysis, but only the admin level users, perhaps the station risk engineers and so on, will be able to make and save changes to process unit and component data. So if we go back to the software, I've already gone ahead and logged in. This is the IRIS start page, and you have the side pane here, and the master analysis is located as the second item on the side pane below overview. So if I expand the master analysis, you get a view of, again, the tree structure which has been inbuilt into the system. We have the organization and all of the different power stations, or generically termed the process units, which belong to the organization. What we have here is a few tools. So we have a filtering tool. We can show basically all components, and when we say all components, we mean pressure vessels and piping, or we can show only piping or only other equipment being everything that is not piping. In order for this to make sense, first the user needs to enable the counts. So on each of these side pane trees that you can have in the overview, in the master analysis, in the analyses, and indeed in the dashboard. I'm just going to bring up the dashboard here by selecting Escom RBI EN16991, and a dashboard will pop up for us as well. But we're not going to go into it right now. So to speed up the operation of the tool, a lot of the data is loaded on demand now, and one of the things that can be displayed in this tree in the master analysis, if you right click, you can show and hide component counts. So if I go ahead and show the component counts, it's basically going to show the number of components which are located, well, first of all, within the whole organization. So this is the sum of all of the components in the different stations which have been included, and then within each power station, for the usually up for now one unit, we have the different numbers of components which are there. Now, when you have this kind of thing, or maybe I just first show it in Letabo, so we have 2,390 components. If we expand it, we have 390 in the common plant. We have pre-prepared some components in a different unit for further exercise, but these were the main ones which were completed as part of the rollout of the project, and we have Unit 4 with its 1,996 components, and then we have within that Unit 4 boiler, Genelec, and turbine. Now, to be able to see what percentage of these components were classified as piping type components and what were classified as others, we can just say here. So here we have all of the components selected. If we just want to show the piping, it's going to show the number of piping type components which were in all of these different stations. Or if we want to show everything else, pressure vessels, valves, and so on, we have our other equipment, and this shows the number of other equipment. So I'm going to put that back on all components. And yes, maybe go into a unit in order to demonstrate some of the features of the master analysis. So if we go to the boiler, in this case, Letabo Unit 4 boiler, we get this kind of analysis starting information. Sorry. Push the navigate back button there on my mouse. So the starting information. The user cannot change the name here. Later in other analyses, when we get to the analysis tab, you'll be able to input the name. This is all these components are within this master analysis. So this is this master repository. It shows its belonging to Letabo Unit 4 boiler. We have the description, plan end year used for inspection planning. We'll get to that at a later point. And then we have some analysis settings options. We basically, this was important and was shown in a different exercise a bit earlier on. So we can choose how we show the component names in the trees, whether we want the comp ID, whether we want the functional location code, or the descriptive name. And then something that is also going to be important in the analyses, but also in the master, the users can choose to show the length, the dimensional length units of all components in the master. So once this is changed in the master, it applies to all the data in the master. However, in the individual analyses, one analysis can be set to show certain names, certain length units, volume units, pressure units, and so on. So the user has the choice to display the length in meters or millimeters, to display the volume in cubic meters or liters, and to display the pressure at this point in bars or kilopascals. Something else that can be done here, you can override or set a high level pressure testing interval for all equipment, and then any new equipment where you have ticked off that it is subject to pressure testing, if you have not input anything there, it's going to default to 72 if that equipment belongs to this particular unit. Of course, by inputting some other number than 72, you're going to override the default input. So this is just a default kind of number that if you input it there and you're not sure, or if you want to speed up the process, it automatically brings back 72 from the parent. As far as the RBI settings, most of these settings are actually concerned with the API RBI side. So when you are using ESCOM RBI EN16991, these things don't really need to concern you. There is also a qualitative analysis method on the API RBI side for level 1, where one of the options is the API kind of extremely simple damage mechanism split, and you select the susceptibility of the equipment to the different damage mechanisms, and then there is a more complex and more detailed RBIF, basically root cause failure analysis tree, where you have a split of your different kind of damage mechanisms. Equipment modification factors, management system evaluation factor, consequence area settings, and so on. All of this is related to the API side. Just to quickly show you, before we go on actually to the objective of this exercise, just to quickly show you some of the things about the components and this name. So right now we've got the component descriptive name, and if we go to open the components tab, which we will cover in more detail in a later exercise, we have basically a flat list of components at the moment. I'm not going to show you the other options there. I'm going to show it in a later exercise which is tied to that. But we have the descriptive names, which make a lot of sense to us. We can navigate and find our components. As I said, we can also choose the comp IDs. When you have name, it's actually comp ID, and if I save the analysis settings, you should see that all the comp IDs are popping up. Also, if I go and do the functional location code, Letabo is an AKZ station, so it's going to bring the AKZ codes for these different components. With regards to length units, volume units, pressure units, I'm just going to go ahead and change this to quickly demonstrate to you. So let's say I want the pressure in bars, I want the volume in liters, and I want the length in millimeters, and I save this, save analysis settings, and I go to any of the components here. In fact, let's bring it back to the descriptive names so that we can see what kind of a component we're opening. Oh, and another quick point, just to point out here, as was covered in the previous exercise as well, whenever you hover over any of these components, if you have any of the display names shown, it will always show the other two names, or the comp ID and the descriptive, in this case, name, because we have the functional location code selected at this moment. So this is, for example, main control valve, feed water piping from HV heaters to economizer. So anyway, I wanted to switch it back to description. I save it, I get my description, and just to show you again quickly, in this case, it's going to show the comp ID and the functional location code. So if we go to the main feedwater piping to economizer, there you have its comp ID and you have its functional location code according to AKZ. So maybe let's go to this piping. I don't think the piping has a length information input, but we have the pressure unit at least. And we're going to try and find a steam drum maybe or something to show you all of that. So just to quickly demonstrate something else, in the master analysis, the user manipulates and sets basically the belonging of the component to identifying information as was mentioned in the slides. So to which plant area, unit, and power station it belongs, to which system it belongs, and we've put in the KKS system designations, what kind of component type it is. This one has already been recalculated, so it's saying yes, it is a piping greater than 16 inch. It takes this information automatically from the diameter. So even if it is in the beginning set as something else, it's going to always look at the diameter and classify it as the right size of piping. And we have our descriptive name, and we have a service start date. Once again, you can see from this little tooltip, and as was mentioned on the slides, so everything within the basic data, everything that is identifying the component here is only editable on the master analysis. This is a characteristic of the component that doesn't change from one analysis to another. So if it is a main feedwater piping to economizer, which is belonging to Letabo unit 4 boiler, it can't belong, let's say, to Letabo unit 4 boiler in one analysis and then belong to Letabo unit 3 boiler in another analysis, and so on. This component, so this information is set in the master. Likewise, component design dimensional information which doesn't change from an analysis to an analysis is only editable on the master. Design pressure, design temperature data, design standard data, editable on the master analysis. And these are these reference fields. So as per the old Excel sheet, part C data sources, basically the design data sources, part D data sources, operating data sources, part E data sources, inspection data if any was available, and part F data sources, failure or repair data if any was available. And also the little yes no ticks. So does the system to which the component belongs to have safety and protection devices? Is there trendable or online data which can be pulled? And this is tied to basically the part E section. Is there inspection info available, and was there failure or repair history? SANS data, we're going to cover that in deeper when we get into the components themselves. So the objective of this exercise or this demonstration will be to show the users how we can create or delete new process units, or basically whole new power station units, new plant areas, and so on. So in order to do that, I'm going to go ahead and close this Letabo unit 4 boiler, and I'm going to show to you how to create, for example, a unit 2 and to create some subunits to this unit 2, which will be the boiler plant area and the turbine plant area, for example, and show you what I can and cannot delete, these safety features. I'm going to go ahead and close this analysis. Now, in order to easily create subunits to a wanted unit, one should just be a little bit careful when opening. You don't have to open too much data to get to the right unit where you want to, or power station where you want to create subunits. So you can just select your power station if you want to add units, or if you already have a, for instance, unit 2 in Letabo and you want to add a boiler plant area and so on, you can just open the unit 2 and start adding new process units which are belonging to it. So in order to demonstrate this, I'm going to, like I said, create a Letabo unit 2. So I'm going to go ahead and open the whole power station Letabo, all of the information that we have within Letabo so far. I'm going to open Letabo power station. Then now we have basically the new process unit in button. We can always do it there. And the other option would be to right click. Okay, not here, I apologize. You can delete by right clicking, and you can try to delete units by right clicking. So you can add the new process units here in the drop down on the top bar. So now I'm currently in Letabo, and I want to add a new process unit in, and you see that my selection is limited basically to what I have opened. I cannot add a new process unit within the whole of ESCOM and some other power station. So I can add a new process unit in Letabo power station. So let's say for instance I want to add a unit 2. I'm going to add a unit 2 which belongs to Letabo. It's always saying the new process unit I'm creating as a child of its parent, let's say, and the parent of unit 2 would be Letabo power station. So I'm going to go ahead and create this new process unit in Letabo, and it's going to give me a generic name. It's called new process unit 167. Now, once I have this new process unit, I have the process unit information here, which I can edit, and I also have the documents tab where I can add new documents on the level of this process unit. And this kind of documents tab is going to be a repeating theme, always on lower levels. So say, for example, if I was to open the whole of ESCOM, which I have done in the past, then I can start adding documents on the level of ESCOM, like the ESCOM RBI manual, or all of the guidelines and RBI processes. If I were to open, for example, Letabo Power Station, I can add new documents on the level of the whole of Letabo Power Station. So if I have a power station layout, or if I have a power station cross-section, I can add those kinds of documents there if I so choose. If I go to the level of the unit, then I can start adding unit level documentation here and so on. If I get down to individual components, this also contains a documents tab, and there I can start adding inspection records or some design documentation specific to the particular component and so on. So back to the process unit data. I'm going to call this process unit, unit 2. You can add a description or not. Of course, it's nice to be as descriptive as possible. Have the nicest possible information that you have. Letabo Power Station, unit 2. I'm not exactly sure when this unit was commissioned, so I'm going to go with 1987. And I'm going to save my process unit. So now you can see in the tree we've got our Letabo, we've got our unit 2, we have a unit 3 which was created before, and basically the main unit 4 which was covered during our project. Now I can start adding new process subunits within unit 2. So say for example I want to add in the structure. So I'm going to say new process unit in Letabo Power Station unit 2. So within unit 2 I've created a new process unit with a generic name. And I'm going to call this new process unit boiler. And put in a description, Letabo Power, or let's say unit 2 boiler plant, or plant area. And let's say, yeah, of course, if the unit started service in 1987, let's say 1987. Also, one thing to notice, it kind of remembers some of your previous entries. So I've already put in 83, 86, 87. So it's going to, assuming you're in the session, it's going to remember what you have put in before. So a little bit of a help there. So I'm going to go ahead and save this boiler. And let's say I'm going to add another new process unit in Letabo unit 2. I'm going to add the turbine plant. So I've got my generic new process unit 169. So we're going to say turbine. Try to keep the names consistent. We've tried to create a structure for you as according to the previous RBI scorecards. So we say common plant, which is outside the unitized level, and within the units we have boiler, turbine, and Genelec. Letabo, unit 2, turbine plant. Again, it should, yes, it should bring back some of my selections, and I'm gonna save this process unit. Now, the last part of this demonstration is related to basically, say for example you've made a mistake or something. Of course, if you've made a mistake, one of the things you can always go and do is just go ahead and open that process unit, make the changes that you need, and save again. If you've saved your changes, this is how you would modify some of this information. If you want to add additional documents, you can go back, for example, to the boiler area, go to the documents, and add your documents. But say for instance you want to delete a unit. This is this security feature which is integral to the tool. So if I was to go, for example, to my unit 2 of Letabo Power Station, you will notice here that this delete process unit button has been grayed out. I cannot delete this Letabo unit 2 because it has currently subunits belonging to it, the boiler plant area and the turbine plant area. I can also maybe try to do it by right-clicking on this and saying delete process unit. It's going to show a warning message and say the process unit cannot be deleted if subunits or components exist within it. So I can try to do that, but of course it will not do that because we have this boiler and turbine plant. However, if we go to this turbine plant, it has no children in the hierarchical structure below it, and it has no components inside, so it actually is possible to delete this process unit. So I'm going to go ahead, and you can either do it here, or you can do it here and say delete process unit, or go here and say delete process unit. Yes, I want to delete this turbine plant for whatever reason, and it's going to get rid of that turbine plant. So this has been a quick demonstration, a little bit of background information, and also a demonstration of how to create and open and update and delete process units within the system. Thank you.